Right, hi everyone. Yes, tonight we're going to be talking about the LaBiancas because they don't get talked about enough. And years ago, I've done 3 streams about the LaBianca murders, and I break it down into 3 parts, like the murders themselves, and then what it said in the police report about Leno and about Rosemary. And so what I've done tonight is I've tried to summarize them all into one stream. And if you want more detail, obviously go to the other stream. And because it's so hard to find the crime scene photos, normally I direct you to a site that has all the crime scene photos, but it's really hard to find the photos of the LaBiancas. So I've actually made a Substack article to go with this stream. I'm sharing it in the chat right now because I don't like to show them on screen. But if you want to see them, and if you're watching this on playback, it will be in the description. And it is in the description now, if you can see the description. I'll be sharing the link in the chat if you want to see it. Obviously, if you'd rather not see the crime scene photos, when it comes to it, I'll describe what you see in the crime scene photos if you don't want to see it. But yeah, that's so a different aspect of this tonight. Yeah, there's an interactive link, and I don't know what devices you're watching this on, but yeah, you have to open it in another window. Obviously, if you're watching on a tablet or something like that, if you've got a smart TV, you can watch the stream on your TV and have it open on your device to be in the chat and all that sort of thing as well. You have trouble. Yeah, the pictures of this are really quite brutal. That's the thing. This is the point I want to make, but I don't want to show it on the screen because I don't like to show it in case people don't want to see it. Basically, yeah. But if you can stomach it, yeah, there's the link to see it, and we'll get on with it. Yeah, and I'll go into more detail about how I've summarized everything as well once we start. But yeah, that's it. And well, yeah, I'll get on with the presentation pretty quickly, so we've got something to talk about. Thanks for coming, everyone. 53 people here already, so that's quite a good turnout. And yeah, it's actually the winter solstice today. It's Yule, isn't it? So happy Yule, everyone that celebrates it. And it's over the Christmas period, obviously. So Merry Christmas, everyone who's celebrating that. Yeah. No, I haven't seen that. I would like to hear it though. Yeah, it's interesting. It's so sad as well. The story of the LaBiancas, like I say, and like at the end of this, I'm going to do a section where we call it like wandering into the weeds, where we talk about the alternate theories and that. But most of it's going to be based on just what it says in the police reports and the autopsy reports. But at the end, I'll talk about all the theories, sort of thing. So it should be quite a long one. So that's why I want to get into it pretty quickly. All right, this stream is a consolidation and re-examination of the LaBianca murders. The goal is not to shock or sensationalize, but to walk carefully through what the physical evidence and police documentation actually show, and to compare that story to the story that has been repeated for decades. By the end, the issue is not whether one prefers an alternative theory, but whether the official narrative can coexist with the evidence at all. Because just like Cielo Drive, there's lots of things that don't add up about the LaBiancas. With the story, we're told what happened, but obviously people don't pay so much attention to the LaBiancas. But the LaBiancas is just as full of holes as Cielo was, and it's sad that it doesn't get more attention. So where the analysis comes from, it's based on the transcripts from 3 prior LaBianca live streams. Those streams examined the case in separate parts. All material was consolidated and rechecked here. Autopsy reports and police reports used as primary sources, and it's synthesis, not new speculation. So for full details, see the 3 earlier LaBianca streams, and I've now made a playlist of the LaBianca streams as well, because there was one for Cielo Drive, but not for the LaBiancas. So it's not a brand new investigation started from scratch. It's a synthesis of 3 earlier live streams where different aspects of the LaBianca case were examined in depth. Those transcripts were then fed through a custom GPT configured to prioritize autopsy findings, police reports, and scene evidence. This stream condenses all of that work into one coherent narrative. If you want every rabbit hole, the original streams are still there. So is that clear to everyone what I've done? I've given it the transcripts of the original streams, and we've summarized it, and it's got run through a GPT that's programmed with all the autopsy reports and the police reports. And if you want to see the original streams where I read out whole sections of the police reports and that, the streams are still there. This is just like a synthesis of that. And yeah, and it's not, AI didn't do this for me on its own. It's still a lot of work putting this together. It's taken me hours to put this together. And it's based off of the transcripts of my old live streams, basically, yeah. So it's important to be clear about boundaries. The stream is not arguing that anyone was innocent. nor that a single alternative motive can be proven. It does not rely on confessions or jailhouse narratives, and it does not attempt to revive or defend helter skelter mythology. The focus is narrower and more basic, whether the accepted story matches the evidence. The prosecutor's account, later popularized in true crime retellings, follows a clear structure. Leno LaBianca is surprised in the living room. Rosemary is either already in the bedroom or brought there early. Both victims are restrained and reassured. Control is established. Charles Manson leaves. Others enter and carry out the killings under direction. This narrative depends on several assumptions: early and total control of both victims, successful restraint of Rosemary, minimal resistance, a clean handoff between perpetrators, and if any of those assumptions fail, the sequence collapses. For the official narrative to function, several things must be true simultaneously. Both victims must be restrained early, resistance must be minimal, and control must be established before the murders begin. If even one of these elements fails, the story starts to unravel. Because we're told both victims were tied up, and this is the thing. There's actually nothing to suggest Rosemary was tied up, as we'll see when we get into it. So, what the scene shows about Leno LaBianca. The scene places Leno LaBianca on the couch reading the newspaper. This indicates surprise rather than preparation. He was not hiding, barricading, or expecting trouble. Whatever happened next happened quickly and without warning. Leno's bindings were not casual or gentle. The abrasions and skin slippage on his wrist show force and resistance. This is not consistent with a calm, compliant victim being reassured and neatly or gently tied. It shows a struggle. And I'm going to put the link in the chat again. So yeah, if you can see the pictures, you can see the diagram of Leno's hands basically, and yeah, it doesn't look like he was tied gently, does it at all? You can see the skin slippage, as they say. There's a colour and a non-colour photo, a black and white photo. But the black and white photo's got better definition, so you can see the skin slippage more clearly on one of his hands. But he wasn't tied gently. You can see his hands have bled from where he struggled so hard to try and get out. So he wasn't tied gently. So, you know, what they're telling us, that Manson came in and calmed them down and said, it's all right, you won't be hurt. It doesn't look like that at all. It looks like Leno was struggling a great deal. And some police reports suggested Leno may have been throttled with a lamp cord. However, the autopsy does not support strangulation as a cause of death. He died from stab wounds, including a fatal neck wound. This shows how early investigative impressions drifted beyond what the medical evidence confirms. And if you scroll down further, I've got the pictures of Leno in the living room. So there's one picture of him on the slab there, but it's been cropped, so you can only really, they're obviously trying to show you the word war and the fork in his stomach. But if you see, you can see a lamp cord going over towards his neck, and there, what looks like a pillow is over his face, not a pillowcase, an actual pillow, like a cushion from the couch. But the photo is so cropped you can't see properly. But it doesn't look like there's a pillowcase over his head as well, because that's another thing we're told, is they put a pillowcase over their heads. But it looks like there's actually a cushion over his face. And the other picture of him on the slab, the knife has been removed. It's very difficult to tell anything from the pictures, yeah. So Leno LaBianca was found on the living room sofa, hands bound tightly behind his back. The bindings were not loose or symbolic. Abrasions and skin slippage on the wrists indicate force and struggle. This was violent restraint, not compliance. Early police interpretations suggested possible throttling with a lamp cord. The autopsy does not support strangulation as a cause of death. Leno died from stab wounds, including a fatal wound to the neck that severed the carotid artery. The knife was left embedded. What matters here is not the number of wounds, but the mechanics. Leno was restrained, immobilized, and killed where he was held. His blood does not show movement through the house. His restraint was real, and it is isolated. So yeah, he'd never moved off the sofa, really, and he died from the wound in his neck, the wall being carved into his stomach, and the stabbing with the fork that happened after he was dead. But yeah, one wound, the knife seemed to have got stuck in his neck, and there's no picture of the knife stuck in his neck as well. So few pictures. But yeah, awful. But yeah, we're told Manson went in there and calmly tied them up and was nice to them. But that does, if you look at the picture of Leno's hands, it doesn't look like he was tied gently, does it? And he never really got away from the sofa. He didn't, yeah, move around the house a lot. And you can see from the autopsy diagram there all the wounds they recorded around his wrists where he had been tied. Yes, and Rosemary LaBianca. Rosemary LaBianca's injuries tell a very different story. There is no evidence she was restrained, no wrist bindings, no restraint injuries, no marks consistent with being tied. This absence is critical because the official narrative requires that she was immobilized early. Instead, Rosemary shows signs of movement and resistance, cruel blood indicating mobility after injury, displaced clothing, hair found clutched in her hand, and extensive bleeding while alive. The fatal wound severed the spinal cord from behind, consistent with an attack during movement or collapse rather than execution of a secured victim. Rosemary was found on the bedroom floor beside the bed, parallel to it, with her head oriented towards the closet at the foot of the bed. She was not on the bed, not tied to it, and not blocking the doorway. This position is consistent with struggle and collapse, not placement. And yeah, the pictures of Rosemary are obviously horrible as well because it's just really awful. Her dress has been pulled right up over her head. And yeah, there's a picture of her on the slab here with the wounds. If you're looking at the document, this is. And then you see the picture of how she was in the bedroom. But if you look, you can see her head. The pillowcase is not over her head, it's across her shoulders. It's been draped across her shoulders, like it was placed there afterwards. So there is blood on it. And if you scroll down further, there's a colour photo and you can clearly see the pillowcase. There is a tiny bit of blood on it, but it's definitely not over her head. It's just been draped over her shoulders. So why do they tell us they both had pillowcases over their heads? And if you look at the pictures, they didn't. It's just another weird thing. Why do they say these things? So this asymmetry is central to understanding the LaBianca scene. Leno was forcibly restrained and rendered immobile. Rosemary was not restrained and remained mobile. A narrative that requires total control over both victims cannot survive this imbalance. Yeah, and if you look at the picture of Rosemary again, the colour photo, the more clear photo, you can see the cruel smear from where she crawled. And you can see her hands weren't tied up, the position she's in, her hands are splayed. And if you look at the autopsy diagram in more detail, there's an abrasion on her wrist, but that's like a fighting wound, not a abrasion from being tied. She was never tied up. And she was moving about. She had hair in her hand as well, so she fought them. She grabbed their hair as she was fighting them. And all her wounds are in the back and they're consistent with her moving around as she was being stabbed and falling and collapsing, and that's where the wounds were coming from above her. In last week's stream we talked about that. But yeah, she definitely wasn't tied up, she wasn't immobilized, she was walking around. And in her trial testimony, her penalty phase testimony, Leslie said she was offering them things, in that, like she was being robbed. We get to that in a minute. Yeah, that's it. I'm assuming they must have removed it before they took the picture. Yeah, but I can't believe that there must be a photo of the knife in his neck taken by the coroner, but it's just never been released. It's just really strange. And Tex won't say anything about it. Tex is really, really quiet. It's like, and none of their police interviews, what they said to the police, has ever been interviewed or anything released. You know, who knows what the hell really happened here. And this section uses a spatial reconstruction of the LaBianca house to show how the crime unfolded in real space. The diagram fixes victim locations, distances, and lines of movement. Once the layout is mapped, several elements of the official narrative become mechanically impossible. And there's no trails from either of them. They died pretty much in the area where they died. And I've marked where all the writing on the walls was as well, where it said death to pigs, rise, and Hilter Skelter. They wrote here, didn't they? Yeah. And that shows you the position, because there is no other crime scene diagram that I've seen other than the ones they showed in court. This is the only one I've ever seen that's a floor plan of the LaBianca house. But yeah, it's just terrible. Yeah, well, this is the thing. She'd put several dresses on. That's the other thing, because there's this. Well, when we get into the wandering into the weed section, I'll talk about this. But they say that they took Rosemary somewhere, so she put another dress on over her night dress, and they took her out somewhere to get money or something like that. But that's never been proved. And there's something about the way the boat was parked. The boat had been moved out so that they could drive out or something like that. But yeah, that's not mentioned in any police report, though. Yeah, that's not official. Oh yes, and then like I said, I did stream where I read out everything it said in the police reports about Rosemary. The police reports describe Rosemary as financially active and independent, with prior concerns about security and burglary. This context helps explain her behaviour during the crime without jumping to motive or conspiracy. And another thing it was saying about Rosemary was she might have been having some lesbian relationships, but that was it. That it said in the police report. And there was one ex of hers who claimed that she stole a load of property when they split up, but everyone else spoke very positively of her. There was nothing bad about her, really, But that was all they found about her, and it was implied by her daughter that maybe Leno couldn't get it up, and that's why she was having these lesbian affairs. But that was the other thing. That was all there was about Rosemary, really. Yeah. And Leno's financial issues are documented and real, but they have limits. Investigators specifically rejected organised crime involvement. These facts provide background, not an explanation for the murders. Because yeah, and I did another whole stream about Leno. He's supposed to have had gambling debts and been involved with the mafia and that, but the police dismissed that, and this is in the police reports. They totally dismissed the mafia being involved, and obviously it wasn't. It was the Manson family, wasn't it, that did it? But this is it. But the other sad thing about what happened to the family as well, because Leno died, he never got to pay off the debts that he made. So his family lost their share in the supermarket that they'd had for nearly 100 years or whatever. Yeah, because Leno couldn't pay it back because he'd been killed. Obviously, he was going to try and. Well, in fact, the night he was murdered, there was supposed to be a meeting he was meant to be attending, but he'd gone on holiday to the lake. Like I say, in the other streams, I read about all this in more detail. Mm. Yeah, I get into that. I'll get like I said when we get into the wandering in the weeds section. I'll talk about who her daughter dated and all this stuff. But a lot of it's just speculation, and none of it can be proved. Yeah. Oh yes, and look at this. This is the Manson's group proximity to the LaBianca home complicates the idea that the house was purely random. Proximity alone does not establish motive, but it does challenge the simplicity of the official claim. You see, this is Harold True's house, and the LaBianca house is the smaller one, I think, isn't it? Yeah, but you can see, right? And the Manson family parked their black bus on the driveway of the house right next to the LaBiancas, basically. And on one of my other streams, I show the interview where Alice LaBianca talks about this. She was told by the police that Leno LaBianca walked over and had a go at them because they were playing loud music, asked them to turn their music down at some dope party. And so he had an altercation with Charles Manson. And that sort of contradicts the official narrative that the house was totally random. They just went round and picked a random house, but that's what the courts wanted you to think, that these were random people they picked. But there is a association between them. The Manson family had stayed at the house next door, and the whole neighborhood was quite dicey as well. It says in the police report. There was like a long list of suspects, people that were crazy that lived nearby who possibly could have done it, that they thought, obviously they're all innocent, but the neighborhood they lived in was not as nice as it appeared, basically. Yeah. And like I say, watch the other streams if you want more detail about all these things. And Harold True, I think I even showed Harold True briefly being interviewed. Yeah, but he just looks nervous as hell and doesn't want to say anything. But yeah, this is another thing that they don't want you to know about the LaBiancas, is it wasn't random, because they stayed next to the house and they had had some kind of altercation with Lena. Testimony in this case shifts over time and often conflicts internally. The prosecution relied selectively on statements that supported its narrative, while ignoring those that did not. Testimony cannot override physical evidence. Right, so penalty phase testimony. This is not used to determine guilt. The next section draws from penalty phase testimony. This material did not affect the verdict. It is used here only to illustrate narrative instability, not to relitigate guilt. Leslie Van Houten's own account does not describe Rosemary as restrained, and even denies Manson's presence, despite other evidence showing he was there. This is not presented as truth, but as evidence of how unstable the narrative becomes. She claims she doesn't remember placing anything around her neck and is generally vague about the details. And I read out, except the penalty phase, she claims that Manson wasn't even there and Manson didn't come into the house, which is ridiculous because Manson himself even admitted that, so you can't trust anything she says. But she also claimed at penalty phase she did stab Rosemary while she was alive, but later changed her story and said she only stabbed her after she was dead. And apparently the forensic evidence does back that up as well. The wounds in her back could have come from only one attacker that came while she was still alive. So, but yeah, Leslie basically, she doesn't say anything about Rosemary ever being tied up. I think she says something about she can't remember if she placed a pillowcase over her head or something like that. But I've done a video where I read it all out. I'll make sure I add that to the LaBianca playlist. But yeah, you can't really trust anything she said because she also said at the penalty phase that she was at Gary Hinman's house and she wasn't. And she said she saw Susan do it. She said she saw Bobby leave and Susan do it during the penalty phase, which is crazy because he'd already been sentenced at that point anyway, so it did nothing to help him. Just made them all look crazier. Yeah. Yeah, that's not ligature. It's an abrasion. So like a scratch from fighting against something. It's not a ligature mark. It's just a abrasion on her wrist. She was never tied up, and never seems to have had a pillowcase right over her head as well. Well, she didn't in that crime scene photo. If you see it. Even when the testimony is unreliable, its contradictions matter. Leslie's account fails to support the very elements the prosecution needed, and in some respects aligns more closely with the physical evidence than the official story does. She also claimed to have stabbed Rosemary while she was still alive, though according to ChatGPT's forensic analysis, Rosemary's wounds are consistent with only one person stabbing her while she was upright and alive. So yeah, her later change in the story is backed up by forensic evidence. Yeah. It's funny how Harold True hardly knew any of the family when first questioned, but years later, when Judy Hanson interviewed him over the phone, he insisted I knew them all, every one of his little troops, yeah. And there's a clip of him, I'm sure I showed it on one of the past LaBianca streams, where he just looks nervous as hell and says, and he says something about, oh, Manson went back to everywhere people told him no, or something like that. So what the hell do you mean by that? You know what I mean? What did Leno do? Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Right. So at this point, the issue is simple. The official story and the crime scene describe two different events. They cannot both be true. What can be said with confidence is limited but solid. Control was partial, violence escalated inside the house, and staging occurred after death. Motive remains unresolved. And yeah, they stayed in the house for a long time here. They reckon they possibly even showered. They ate food. They left watermelon rinds in the sink, didn't they? And they say this is more evidence of them trying to make it look like black people did it. And obviously, Kremwinkle wrote in blood on the walls, and she repeatedly stabbed Leno with the fork and carved war into his stomach and that, didn't she? But they hung around in this house for a long time. And it's really strange. Manson didn't send anyone to pick them up as well. They just left the house and had to make their own way back to Spun Ranch and just walked away from this. But yeah, presumably they had time to shower and wash blood off themselves and that. So that's how they walked down the streets and got away with it. But that's the other strange thing about this. It makes me think Manson wanted rid of them. He wanted them to get caught because he just left them. He didn't arrange anyone to pick them up or anything. Just walked off. Or they drove off. And there's a whole other series of events of what Charles Manson and Linda Kasabian and the others all did when they drove off. I'm not even going to go into that tonight, so I'm only going into the LaBianca crimes themselves. But yeah. Oh yes, and this is Wandering into the Weeds, the speculative material, yeah. What follows is clearly marked speculation. It is included for completeness, not endorsement. Yeah, the Dorgan and Watson theory, what some people have proposed, that there was a drug turf motive for the crimes. Well, drug burn is a common motive, but yeah, some researchers have proposed a drug-related motive involving Tex Watson and peripheral figures. This theory attempts to explain victim selection rather than ideology. Right, so the Joe Dorgan hypothesis. Tex Watson may have been working outside Manson's control, targeting rivals to gain leverage in the LA drug scene. Susan Struthers, Rosemary LaBianca's daughter, was dating Joe Dorgan, a biker linked to the Straight Satans, known for LSD and meth trafficking. Some believe CLO and LaBianca weren't chosen at random for Helter Skelter, but were part of an effort to eliminate or intimidate local dealers. Dorgan has ties not just to bikers, but also to circles around the Brotherhood of Eternal Love, blending LSD networks with outlaw motorcycle gangs. In this theory, Tex used the family as violent muscle, turning Manson's ideology into a convenient cover for hits tied to biker power plays. It reframes the murders not as a cult apocalypse, but a ruthless turf war to seize the Hollywood drug market. Raises big questions. Was Tex the real driver? Was Manson's philosophy, or just a smokescreen for gangland objectives? So, right, is everyone clear about that? Rosemary LaBianca's daughter had a boyfriend called Joe Dorgan, and this theory relies on the fact Tex and Joe Dorgan knew each other, and they're supposed to have lived in the same street at some point. And people say that's evidence they possibly knew each other. And so this relies on Joe Dorgan and Tex actually having met each other, which there's no proof of, but then them working together to overthrow drug dealers because they were trying to take over the LA drug scene. And it also ties it into the Brotherhood of Eternal Love and other bike uh, drug wars that were going on around the time. I've done a whole stream about Tex's possible involvement with the biker drug wars. Yeah, this is just one aspect of that. And Joe Dorgan was one of the people who was there and found the bodies as well. I think it was the 15-year-old son walked in and actually found them. But Joe Dorgan was there when they reported it, I believe. It says in the police report. That's where his name comes in. But he's the one who's supposed to be a straight Satan. But a lot of people argue that he wasn't a member, he was just a prospect or a friend or whatever. But yeah, and even the guy who proposes this, I'll make sure that it's linked in the description. If you're watching this on playback, the more detailed article about this, the Joe Dorgan hypothesis, it's called. But yeah, even the guy that's writing it doesn't fully believe it though, because it relies on Rosemary LaBianca being a drug dealer, and so that's why they targeted them, basically. And Susan Struthers being involved in drug dealing with her mother as well, and so it being some kind of hit for that. And the other thing that adds some kind of weight to this is the weird statement that she was called LaBerge by the time she did it, Susan LaBerge, but she made a statement at Texas parole hearing saying that they should let him go and she forgives him. And that's a really weird thing for someone to do. And it was really soon after, comparatively as well. It was in the 1980s when Tex was still young, and she made a statement saying that they should release him. So I thought, is that blackmail? Is that something to do with this? Did Tex have something on her? That's the only other thing. Doesn't hold, yeah, because without evidence of Rosemary's involvement in drug trafficking, this theory collapses. The crime scene behaviour also does not resemble organised drug enforcement. Yeah, so like, none of it really resembles anything organised, does it? It's all very strange, the whole crime scene. And people pointed out in the past at streams as well, the coin collection and everything he had, all his valuables, it was all lined up out in the hallway, all in the living room. All their valuables were lined up in the living room. Because I always wondered, was this some kind of staged robbery? Is that why there was no resistance and the dogs didn't bark and no one heard anything? Is it because it was meant to be a robbery and they double crossed them and murdered them? And was Rosemary maybe in on it until they started killing Leno and then she started to freak out so they had to kill her? That's another thing people speculate. Was this somehow arranged? Because they did have debts. So could they have needed insurance or something? So did they get these criminals to do this and got double crossed? That's one thing I've always thought, maybe. Yeah. Joe Dorgan is the one who knew Tex and the Straight Satans and was the point man in the drug dealing operation on the LaBianca's end. But this is the thing, there's no proof he knew Tex really. Tex has never admitted he knew him, and there's no other witnesses to that, is there, as far as I know? That's the other thing. You've never seen it. It's in the Xbot, in the Joe Dorgan hypothesis thing, yeah. But all the different biker drug wars that were going on at this time are quite crazy too. Yeah, there was like a big purge going on in the Hells Angels as well. Terry the Tramp got killed by Sonny Barger. It turns out, it's my god, it's awful. Yeah, they deliberately gave him a hot shot. They gave him too strong heroin that was too strong, and it killed him. And he's the one that was in Hell's Angel 69. Terrible. Yeah, and this is the other thing. The other thing is that yeah, they reckon Manson wanted Leno's black book. He's a dress book of black of mafia contacts or whatever, and it was and that he somehow stole money, and that money that they got from the LaBiancas paid for the debt to the straight Satans, the Gary Hinman thing, the mescaline debt that they wanted. But no one knows how they got money because they don't appear to have really stolen much from the LaBiancas. But then there's more speculation about that. I think Barbara Hoyt said in her book, someone said that she saw Leslie burning dresses, and obviously Rosemary LaBianca had designer dresses, so were they dresses that she stole from Rosemary LaBianca? And she had coins as well. There was a coin collection, so they did steal some stuff from there. But yeah, and there's always been this speculation, something about they drove Rosemary somewhere. That's why she's wearing another dress over her night dress, possibly to get money to unlock a safe in her shop, possibly. Or how would she know the code to Leno's safe in the supermarket? And by the sound of things, he was in trouble. I don't know if it would have been that easy to just enter the supermarket for Leno. Yeah. But it looks like Leno was neutralized pretty quickly. He was tied up and he struggled fiercely against those bonds. If you look at what it did to his hands, it was quite horrible. Yeah. But if it was a mafia hit as well, yeah, they would have just bloody shot him, wouldn't they? Surely it would have been cleaner than this. It wouldn't have been all weird. Like this is like it gets really twisted, doesn't it? So yeah, the LaBianca case matters because it shows how quickly a narrative can harden and how long contradictions can be ignored. The core questions remain unanswered. Evidence first, always. Any serious examination of this case has to begin and end with the evidence on the floor, not the story told afterwards. Because yeah, it just is crazy. Again, that everyone has just accepted the story that we're told, but you look even like briefly over the actual autopsy reports and what crime scene photos we can see. Even from what we can see, it looks like they're lying to us. They're not telling us the truth about what happened. In this new FBI report, there's a couple of newspaper articles that look like they're about Texas trial. Must be from the time that he was being questioned about the LaBiancas, and it says he grows silent. And then when he goes quiet, he speaks in a quieter tone. But when he's asked about the LaBiancas, and in his psychiatry report, he just gets tearful apparently when they try and ask him about the LaBiancas, and he won't talk about it. So yeah, I want to know. There's big questions about what really went on there, and enough of that attention doesn't get paid to it because obviously Cielo overshadows it because of all the Hollywood intrigue. But this is just as connected, and their lives were just as interesting too. And it's tragic what happened about Leno not being able to repay the debts because he died, and that meant that his family lost their share in the supermarket. And there's also the other horrible thing: Susan LaBerge, she became, but Rosemary LaBianca's daughter, her granddaughter, got murdered. Susan LaBerge's daughter got murdered by her boyfriend as well. He broke into her house and murdered her in her bed. And people say is this the curse of the Manson murders visited on them? It's horrible. Yeah, but that was in the past 5 years, wasn't it, that happened? Horrible. Yeah. So get the chat for a minute. Yeah, the LaBiancas don't get enough airtime. The CLO Drive people distract everyone from it, but it's also important, and they need to answer for it. Like Texas never spoken about this. They need to be asked about this and have to speak about it. It's not right that they've been left like this. We've got 90 people here now. The presentation's over as well. Thanks for coming, everyone. We'll keep talking anyway. Do you say you're packing, Jeremy? Are you? Well, you could join for the after show, but are you ready to join now? I don't know if you want to come on and join now, so we can talk a bit more about the alternative motives. Because yeah, the other big thing is I think it must come from Manson. It's Manson talking to authors like Ed Sanders and oh, what was he called? Oh, what was the other one called? Forgot the other one's name. Bloody hell. Oh, but he's spoken. Oh, Neil Lemons. Neil Lemons. Yeah, several authors have interviewed him. I think it's Manson that has said that he got money from the LaBiancas, or he wanted Leno's Black Book, and he will have said it in the Manson file as well. I can find out what he said to Nicholas in the Manson file. But that's the other weird stuff about what was Manson's real motive for choosing the LaBiancas, and it was to do with Leno, not Rosemary. By the sound of things, there's nothing to back up Rosemary being involved in drug dealing. Though there is somehow a rumor that she was some kind of LSD dealer. She was selling LSD somehow. But the only thing that came up in the police report was some possible lesbian affairs. But that's nothing, shocking by today's standards, is it? Yeah. But nothing to suggest that she was into drugs or anything weird. Basically, just yeah. Hmm. Yeah, oh, he was horribly, tied up, and it haunts me. The knife went right through his neck, and I think that whoever did it, presumably Tex, couldn't pull the knife out, so he just left it there. And I was like looking down at the poor dude bleeding out, and there was nothing he could do. His hands were behind his back. Imagine that! What a way to die. My God, poor man. And then when he's dead, they come in and start bloody carving things into him, and oh, oh. Uh, Yeah, well, the long list of the people that lived in the area that were crazy. There was one really strange dude that lived in the area whose wife had reported him because he was crazy. And Lino did have quite he owned racehorses and had quite heavy gambling debts. Yeah, but Rosemary wasn't really, from what the police found, into anything that freaky. Not as freaky as the CLA Drive people. Yeah, yeah. But I wonder, could she have somehow been involved in that sort of stuff through the selling dresses to people and whatever, who knows? Well, he didn't really have a chance. The one stab wound he gets is right through his neck. There's no other stab wounds on him. He was not stabbed anywhere else. It went right through his neck. So he's not going to have been able to say anything, is he? He's going to have been gurgling from the second it went through his neck. So he couldn't have shouted. But she heard Leno make a sound, didn't she? And she started screaming, and that's when they start stabbing her. But that all we have is Leslie's word for that. We only have that Leslie is the only person that's ever talked about it. None of the others have spoken, or if they have, we've not heard what Krenwinkel said. The only word we have is Leslie, and she says that Rosemary started to scream when she heard Leno scream. But yeah, yeah, but he can't have. Well, apparently, yeah, Leslie said that Rosemary reacted when she heard Leno make a sound. But I can't see how he can have said "stop stabbing me." The only stab wound he said he had was literally the knife right through his neck. So what's he going to have been able to say? He was not stabbed anywhere else. All the other wounds on him after death. No, there's no pillowcase over his head. Well, from what you can't see his head in the photo. It's been so tightly cropped, but it looks like there's a pillow over his face, which makes me think: did they try and smother him? Was he still alive? Did it take him so long to bleed out? Because the girl smothered Gary Hinman with a pillow. If you read about the murder of Gary Hinman, so did they have to smother Leno as well? And the lamp cord being near his neck. Though the autopsy report doesn't show signs of strangulation. There was just a knife through his neck, apparently. Horrible. So they might have used it to restrain him or something, the cord. But you can see the lamp cord is right by his body, so you'd see why the police thought maybe he'd been strangled. Yeah. 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 Yeah, well, it's a horrible, just a horrible thought, isn't it? What a way to die. Poor man. And yeah, and like I say, you can't get Patricia Krenwinkel's penalty phase testimony, but I found one article where they asked, when she was asked in court, what were you thinking when you carved war into him? And she said, "You won't be sending your son to war now." That was her response they gave. So what? Did he even? Well, I think he did have sons. I'm not sure, but bloody hell, what was wrong with them? Yeah, it was awful. Mm. Yeah, but there's nothing over their heads though. I showed you. Can you see the pictures? Well, you can't see Leno's head at the crime scene, but it looks like there's a pillow over his head. But Rosemary's head definitely isn't covered. There's a pillowcase, and if you look at this photo of Sebring, that's not in this the article I've just given you. But Sebring definitely had something placed over his head, and then the rope is placed over his head. So people that say there was no hood over Sebring, actually there is when you look at the how they found him. There was like a towel over his head, and then the rope had been placed over the towel. So yeah, there was definitely something over Sebring's head, but nothing over anyone else's heads, as far as I've seen in the crime scene photos. Yeah, yeah. Mm. So just look at the chat for a minute. Well, I've been going 44 minutes. This might be long enough. I might go to an after show. I wanted to carry on a bit longer though, because we're talking about the LaBiancas, and it's just sad they don't get more airtime. And like I say, I've made a playlist now of all the LaBianca streams I did in the past, and I'll make sure they're in the end screen of this. And there's the accompanying Substack article. I'll probably write more Substack articles about the LaBiancas as well. Probably a detailed one about Rosemary and one about Leno. What I can find about them. Yeah, but it is just terrible that this doesn't get more attention. And again, there's as many unanswered questions as there are with Cielo Drive, and it just raises the bar more for them reopening the forensic side of this case, because that's another thing that can happen. They can reopen a case forensically without trying to overturn the verdict. So it's not about trying to free the prisoners or anything like that, but there's so much to question about this case and how it was handled. They could reopen it and re-examine whatever the hell is left of the evidence. And I think where there's allegations, Bugliosi took documents and stuff like that as well. Shouldn't that be investigated? Shouldn't that be checked if that's fucking true? You know, like what the hell? It needs to be reopened because it's not bloody justice, is it really? And it's not about trying to free them because we know they're guilty. It's just what really happened. They should be forced to fucking tell us what actually happened, you know. Because they only lied because they were told by their lawyers, oh, you'll get out of the death penalty or whatever as long as you go along with this story. But fucking now they should be made to tell what they really remember, shouldn't they? That's the crazy thing. Yeah, well, this is it. People question whether they knew them. Yeah, and she had a dress shop, didn't she? She sold dresses. Like everyone mentions the wig thing as well, because she would have sold hair pieces in her shop. And Sebring obviously sold hair pieces. And Tex worked in a wig shop for some bloody period of time, didn't he? At some point. And there's the pictures of the Manson girls dumpster diving at the Gateway supermarket where Leno worked as well, isn't there? So there's speculation that they knew Leno as well. And Rosemary was complaining people were breaking into the house and that they were finding the dogs outside when they should be inside, and vice versa. And like so, people were already breaking into their house. There was something odd going on. Strange things were afoot about this place, you know. Yeah, and did they know them? Did she get to know them while they were staying in the black bus at Harold Tree's house? And there's evidence Linda Kasabian, or speculation at least, that Linda Kasabian stayed at Harold Tree's house far more. That she was there before the Manson family even. So did she know the LaBiancas? Because she was one who didn't go in. She didn't go in on the night of the LaBiancas. She was just driving, wasn't she? But yeah, how much did she have? Uh, uh. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's the buy me a coffee link is in my about section. I could share that. Wait a second. Should be able to find it pretty easily. Yeah, sorry. There you go. That's the buy me a coffee link. Yeah, and you can be a paid subscriber on Substack as well, and you can set up a monthly donation on Buy Me a Coffee as well. I've got a few, about 3 or 4 monthly supporters now on there. And yeah, like I say, the Substack one is a bit more expensive, but yeah. So I've got several supporters on Substack now. I should show the Substack more. Yeah, because I don't get all my subscribers come from the app. People don't even come from the YouTube channel. It's chosen bloody the photo of Leno's hands as the thumbnail. I have to mess with it. Wait a second. Sorry, I just wanted to show you the Substack. Takes a minute. Right, not that one. That one. Yeah, that's the Substack. You see, it's like a well. You remember what blogs were? There's the Manson blog, and you can see I've got over 40 odd articles on here now. There's 44 articles, I think. It's the latest one, obviously. The LaBianca's. Yeah, and you can see all the Substack articles. And yeah, to subscribe, you just put your email address in the subscribe buttons. Or if you've got a Substack account, you just click subscribe. And it's free. You don't have to be a paid supporter. If you want to, you can. But yeah, there's always the free option. And the main bulk of the articles would always be free. I never charge for those. But yeah, it's like a written element to the channel, basically. So I think it's better to sometimes to get information like this across. In written articles rather than streams because people, don't take it all in as I'm talking or whatever, and I can just get the bulk of what I wanted to say across. And that's the link to the Substack, obviously. Yeah, like I say, look through it. Over 44 articles now. Getting popular, growing on there. I've got over 300 subscribers on there now, but very few of them come from the YouTube channel. So yeah, I thought that people would be into it. If you like the amount of detail I go into on that, look at the articles I'm writing on here. mm. Yeah, well, this has been gone on for 51 minutes, and I've got 81 people here. I think I'll end this for a minute, and I'll go to an after show, and we'll just chat generally, yeah, because I don't want to like ramble too much on a stream like this. But yeah, give me 5 minutes, and we'll have an after show. It's festive as well, and it want to have some. And people are asking me about Rob Reiner. I didn't want to say anything on a mainstream, but yeah, it's making me quite angry the way they're covering it. But yeah, I'll talk about that on the after show as well. It's very sad what's happened there, and I'm angry about the way people are seemingly blaming them when they were paying a lot of money to send that kid to expensive psychiatrists. And what the fuck are these Hollywood psychiatrists doing if they're not diagnosing people with problems? And that's happened suddenly, fucking what was he paying for? You can't blame him. He was sending him to the fucking best psychiatrist he could fucking find, probably, wasn't he? Anyway, but yeah, give me 5 minutes and yeah, I'll talk to you on the after show.